Not even you are.
Yuck.
Tis the season to be sickly.
Dude. What a week. The first snow week of the year. For us.
Yeah, we had snowfall on Tuesday, but it didn't stick. But it fell for about a half hour to an hour.
It was like the Lord was really testing me this week, Jeff. Jesus,
I like that.
personally, was testing me.
I'm surprised that he took the time.
His son. His only son. Jesus does have a son, yeah. People don't know that.
Ricky.
Which, I saw a commercial yesterday when I was watching, my dad and I were watching the Texas game, and there's a commercial for a movie about Mary. Jesus' mammy.
Yep, sure.
And she looked pretty young in the movie. And I was like, I don't know that the old good book ever says how old Mary is.
That's a good point.
But by archaeological records of the time, it's probably true that she would have had Jesus around the age of 15. Because that's what was going on at the time. Because people only lived to like 50 or so.
Right.
And it really brings me joy to know that God knocked up a 15-year-old.
Right. Right. So
that's the data, folks. Those are the historical data.
If you want to play this game, we'll play this game.
So now, you know what? Whatever I do for the rest of my life, it won't be as bad as what the Lord did, I guess. I don't know. As I say that, and speaking of God, look at this. It's a bookmark.
That's a freedom.
It's a bookmark, and it's like one of those holographic ones with eagles flying.
Oh, yeah. The eagle flies.
And what's weird about it is I was walking out my door here once, and that's where my bookshelf is, and I saw a bookmark sitting there. And it was that bookmark, and I've never purchased that. I don't know how I ended up there.
Yes.
I don't know if like somebody brought it and like hid it, or somebody put it in one of my books once, just as a nice surprise. But I sure was.
I think your landlord or the repairman, I think he left it. He seems like
that's
guy
not
that had that bookmark.
It's not a 0% possibility.
Yeah.
Just wanted me to have the American spirit, the godly spirit, and let's get going.
I've confused my priorities. Isn't it supposed to come to me? Yes, this is how it's meant to be. Every little thing flashing on a screen. Age of convenience. My daddy worked hard for this.
It's like the idea of reading a book and forgetting what, just forgetting that bookmark's in there and be like, oh yeah, freedom. Man.
Now I remember.
Yeah. Now I can hop back into this book about a Middle Eastern gay drug addict.
You have to. Yeah, I was gonna say you have to use that bookmark if you read books that are banned in other countries.
Yeah.
Just to remind you how lucky you are to read the book.
Yeah. Just as American Jesus intended.
Yep.
Yeah, it was the test of the snow this week. Because, I've been back for a few years, but we haven't had really gnarly winters, per se, which is nice. Because the planet's getting so warm. Or something. I don't know how weather works.
In realtor speak, we would say the planet's getting cozy. It just sounds better. It's getting cozy.
That is nice. It's warming. So much so that, that really made me think of... All right, I'm going to digress off a digression. I woke up early this morning at like 6 a.m. and something I usually like to do if it's before my alarm is either throw on YouTube or a podcast and kind of let it, through osmosis, fill my dreams or my headspace so I'm sort of hearing something. And then does it ever like get into your dreams like those early morning if you fall back asleep and you're just sort of like it's your entire narrative or whatever's happening?
For me, it happens more if I like fall asleep on the couch. Like if I nap on the couch with a TV going, it's that weird middle ground where awake, asleep, everything's kind of meshing together.
So I was like, pulled up YouTube, and sometimes I'll do ASMR stuff as we talked about. But I was like, oh, here's a little BBC doc, which BBC very generous, puts almost all their cool shit on YouTube for free. Like a lot of the Planet Earth stuff or some of the best chases. But this was about planets. So I was like, this is cool. I haven't seen this one. Narrated by Benedict Cumberbatch, so you know it's legit. Because he's Doctor Strange and he can move planets and stuff, I think. Or something like that. I'm not familiar with the lore, but he probably could if he wanted to. And this thing starts off, it's about all the planets in our solar system. But it starts off with talking about Earth. And then it says, just matter-of-factly, all these space scientists and Earth scientists are like, just casually, like, in 500 years from now, 500 million years, there will be, the sun will have gotten so hot that it will have evaporated all of the Earth's water, and it will be left in a red state, much like Mars. And it was just so casual. It's easy. Then they're like, well, in 5 billion years, the sun will have become a red, whatever, ultimate I don't know, giganto something, I don't know.
It levels up.
Sun. And it will have already consumed Mercury and Venus. And but by most estimations, a lot of scientists predict it will just graze the Earth. It won't go. It won't touch the Earth. But it doesn't matter because the Earth will be so hot. It'll have everything will have been dead.
As if that's the silver lining.
No, for billions of years, everything would have been dead. But I was like, wow, really makes you feel good about being a living being on this planet, knowing that it's all going to be gone. And I just got real sad 'cause I was like, someday my Nintendo 64 won't exist anymore. I mean, neither will dolphins or squirrels or plankton, but, you know, all the things that we love about life will be gone. So that's what was in my head at 6 a.m. I was like, this is supposed to be comforting, Benedict. What are you doing to me? I mean, I know we wouldn't be around for it anyway, but
not even. I like that you name dropped the inanimate object first, the thing that can't die. You're like, my N64 won't be around. I'm like, I don't know. Will that last longer than all of us though? Because yeah, it probably will. Your N64. Don't feel sorry for your N64. Your N64 feels sorry for you.
But what about all of the sports records? You know?
I know.
What about all the shows every day dedicated to talking about them? They'll be for naught. It's a very existential crisis kind of morning. You know?
I'm glad you could share it with all of us so we can all realize how pointless everything is.
Yeah. That was basically it. I was like, happy Sunday.
That's basically it.
Yeah.
You know, we're going to cut the episode
but I did
there.
learn that Uranus, as they say on this program to try to keep you from giggling, Uranus has rings on it. Oh, man.
Oh, no.
And,
oh, no.
oh, God,
polyps.
it's not working. And those rings actually go vertically instead of horizontally, like its rotation. Because at one point in its history, it got hit by an Earth-sized rock and tilted. And I also like to think that there's something else just like Earth that was, you know, speeding through the universe and just rocked another planet enough, but not too much because this Earth-sized thing probably just smashed completely, got destroyed. But it tilted. It tilted another bigger thing, you know, a giant ice planet, just enough. But I didn't know that, so
I didn't either.
Uranus has rings and 2 moons. And it goes up and down.
Goes both ways.
That made me happier.
Interesting. I'm glad.
But yeah,
That doesn't have to
driving
worry about
in the
the sun for a
snow.
while.
That's what it was.
Yeah, right. So driving in the snow.
What's your as a driving professional?
Yeah.
How's this season treating you? I mean, does your
mean?
business get busier
Overall, like in my
as the
life?
snow drops?
Oh. Well, if I was on front end claims,
Yeah, that's true.
yeah, we definitely do see more car accidents. So the front level, like property damage claims, definitely go up in the winter. Um, but that's about it. I mean, we're in a big hiring frenzy right now, so my job has actually gotten more complex and overloaded. But yeah, it's you know what our job fears the most is like hurricane season. That's what the auto industry hates the most, is because suddenly an area gets flooded and it's just
Like
kaboom,
10,000
there's
claims.
yeah, just an absurd amount of claims that come in. And yeah, you know what, I'm gonna be selfish. It's unfortunate for everybody, but it's double unfortunate for us because those hits affect my pay, and I don't like that at all. I get more money the less
Your
claims
pay.
there are. Yeah.
Wait, you get more money if there's less claims? How does that
Yep.
work?
Profit
Is it
sharing,
just piece of the
gain
pie?
share, gain share. Yeah.
Wow.
Profitability. It's generic profitability. So um, there's nothing sneaky
your
going on. This is a public traded company, so. But yeah, we have percentage
Then
of
why are
gain
you
share
here?
based on how good the business does.
That's my bane
What? Oh.
from Dark Knight Rises. It's like in the stock exchange floor. There's no money you can steal here, and he goes, "So why are you here? Is your CEO still alive?"
Yes. The
Okay.
jeez. Yes, our CEO is alive and well. Yeah. How about that? That's a pretty.
I
That's
was
a pretty wild
yeah.
thing.
It's also I was talking to my dad last night, and he was like, "We usually don't get into too much. I usually shut it down," because he was like, "Oh, what have you been following about like the insurance, healthcare, CEO?" And I was like,
Um,
because part of me, like many of us, is like, "Fuck the health insurance industry," and then the other part's like, the guy shouldn't have to die for that. But then part of me is like, well, thousands and thousands of people die because of his company. And but my dad was sort of like, yeah, it's crazy, but these insurance, like, because I always thought he would have been like on the side of big insurance. I don't know why I would have thought, not really, but I think he would have been like more appalled by the murder than.
right.
But then he got more
Murder.
into like
Murder
the
bad.
idea of insurance, and it's not a good system. I was like, wait, are we united? No pun intended. About this, I was like, do we? It's like I've never seen a murder really just like bring people together so much, and it's very tragic for him and his family. But it's like, is this really bringing the country together in a way? Just the amount of memes, not since the Titanic submarine has it really brought a peoples together. It takes tragedies of very wealthy people, and the guy still isn't caught, which is like, I bet he can hide out anywhere he wants to. Nobody gives a fuck.
Well, that's the problem, right? Is if he goes around knocking on doors, people are like, "Come in, can I fix you anything?" Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
I saw
it's
that
easy
smile.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it is what it is. It's not. There's only so much empathy to go around, right? You literally can have empathy fatigue, and there's a lot of bad things happening in this world. So in the hierarchy, this one person's death, knowing what he's done in the past and stuff, hey man, don't make decisions that cripple that net you a 9-figure net worth that literally is only obtained because of how often your company refuses to pay medical bills. Like, that's fucked. You know it's fucked. You choose to do it because basically it just comes down to this. I'm looking out for me, and this will never come back to bite me. And then, unfortunately, it came back to bite them with someone literally going up, edging in their fucking, like, bullet shells to make sure everyone understood that this was very targeted and shot and killed you. So, like, you took the chance. There was a great chance you weren't going to be murdered, but, you hit the lottery, unfortunately, and someone murdered you. Like, I think to me, it's literally that simple. Is I don't feel bad for them in any way. I don't know. You put yourself for a long duration and in a manner of possibility. So, like, I saw a graphic, and I'm going to very much paraphrase, but it looked like he became the CEO of United about 10 years ago. And when he started as CEO, he had like a $3 million salary. And last year, his like payout was like $54 million. So it's like, oh, you just kept upping your fucking salaries and bonuses and stuff based on literally making sure people were dying because like, or either dying or going into life crippling bankruptcy.
Quality of life or just life shortening, all of that, yeah.
Correct. So like, honestly, one dude died. That's fine. We have way more pointless deaths and deaths of civilians that are untargeted in this country, in foreign countries. This guy getting murdered is totally fine by me. If we're being serious, that I am okay with this murder.
Oh, that's what's so wild about it. Is like, it is kind of it. Like on a personal level, like if you knew the guy, you're probably like, oh God, that sucks. Like his family and
but
shit.
You're also saying,
like,
he shouldn't have done it. He shouldn't have kept doing that.
I know.
Like, right?
You have to figure out who you are in the world.
Yep.
Are you the guy that helps people, or are you the guy that hurts people?
Right.
And he could have done more probably to help people, besides the shareholders, you know? And that's coming from a guy who took economics in freshman year of college.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I also have insurance. I use it sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll tell you what, I could stand to pay a little less for it. You know what I'm saying?
Pay a little less, have a little more covered.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, it's just, it's just symptomatic of where we are as a people, as a country. It's nothing more than that. It's the people that have more keep getting more, and the people that have less keep getting less, and it's not stopping. And I don't expect it to, in the near future, at all. But it's, and then my dad did the argument of, well, it's like, what else? I mean, what else can you do? Because like there's socialized healthcare, but like look at Canada. Sometimes it can take you months to get into a doctor. And I was like, we can't compare ourselves to Canada. We have to. That can't be the only argument. You have to believe we can do better than Canada.
Argument.
I know.
It's
like, well, in Canada, it's like, well, you don't think we can do better than Canada at it? Like, let's give it a go. I know we have to put a lot of money into all these fancy bombs that we have.
We don't have the right people in power to make the right decisions and figure out an actual method, right? Canada's got a version of it, but that doesn't mean that there can't be a version that works better. Like, sorry, you would actually have to do research. You can't just call up Canada and go, Canada, we're turning over. We're going to do your version of Medicare, or like healthcare coverage. Can you just send over like your how-to book, and then we're gonna do that? Like, no, you actually have to like piece it together. But there's a concept of a system. It's dumb.
Yeah, we can. I think we could figure. I mean, their state police ride horses. That's what we can do better than that. Their state bird is a beaver. I'm pretty sure. I didn't look it up, but I'm pretty sure. Or their national bird. Look at. We have a bird of prey
eagle.
that. Yeah. Even though there's probably more bald eagles in Canada than the U.S., but who cares? It doesn't matter. That's we shouldn't even try. We shouldn't even try to put money into education or health or sustainable living, because we got, for short, like 12 fighter jets that we need to get involved with somewhere. We need billions. But hey, that's also the nature of our people. We as a people in America, we're not about what's doing right. That's not our stock. People here didn't want to be told what to do wherever they were, whether it was the right reason, whether it was the wrong reason. People came here because they were like, no, fuck you, I'm going to do whatever I want to. And now there's generations of people that are saying, fuck you, I'll do what I want you. I don't even care. You know what? That is a better reason. That is a good reason. But guess what? You're telling me to do it. I don't want to do it. And that's who we are as a people. It's just that's it.
Even if
like,
it's
we don't care what's good for us.
If it's a good reason, I don't have to follow you, so I'm not going to.
Yeah, the reason I'm here is because I don't want to listen to your shit, and I can do whatever I want. And that's basically it. That's why we have to have, I guess, billions of dollars of bombs, because people hate us. That ain't us, you know? It is a great country, though. Look, we can do whatever we want to. It's Sunday morning. We've already talked about God, the planets and snow.
Mm-hmm.
We're just 20 minutes in, folks. What a real treat.
Aggressive.
So how was your night last night? Did you go to a did you have another concert this week? You're living the life of a 20-something.
I know, God. Back-to-back weekends with a concert. Went to Streetlight Manifesto in Philadelphia, which, as always, is a delight. They are a fantastic live show and really one of those bands that are great to see perform live because there's so many instruments involved. But, what made me think of is one of the biggest positives. I love going to see live music. We've talked about that. But one of the biggest situations with live music is understanding the travel concept. Like, how am I getting there? What's the parking situation like? When are doors? Is this the type of, how is the venue set up? Do I need to get in at a certain time with this venue to get a good spot? What's the view lines look like? Is there seating? Is there a balcony? So, like, that's the thing with these types of shows is, like, when you go to a stadium show, I'm actually far less worried because you have your assigned seat most of the time, or it's a massive general admission, like on the field. So with these smaller venues, it's always hard because if you've never been there, you really are throwing a Hail Mary, hoping you understand the best situation. But I'm a very particular
person.
Do you,
like, look up the theater before you go?
Oh, absolutely.
Like the layout or the picture?
I try to, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. I try to understand what the venue looks like inside. It's really hard to get the size unless they have like the classic photos from like behind the band from the stage that looks out. Like that's when you can say the size of venue. But yeah, man, like in Philly, there's not a lot of parking. So like I had to figure out, okay, well, how am I parking here? Because I've gone to this venue once before, but I parked on the opposite side of the interstate, and crossing at this massive intersection was really shady. I'm like, all right, I don't want to do that, so I have to be on the other side of the interstate. And like you find out through like parking apps and stuff like that I could park at a Target that like also sells parking spots for like $8 for like 6 hours. Yeah, because it's downtown. Like Target's like if you're shopping at Target, it's free. But if
capitalize,
yeah. So I parked at this Target and we walked like 2.5 blocks to get to the venue. So that wasn't bad. And yeah, we got there we had to wait in line about 10 minutes before doors opened, but we went to a balcony section that had like risers and like stools. So we like sat on like these bar stools and had a perfectly good shot of the band, no one in front of me or anything like that. So I was pleased with the outcome.
I had to
access
like
to the bar.
For some reason I don't recall Streetlight Manifesto jams, but I probably have heard them. That'll be my to-do for the week. Listen to some Streetlight. Are you a Spotify person? Have we ever talked about that? Because it's deeply important. So did you get your rap this week? And why haven't you posted it?
God, I did get my rap because it really wasn't that good. Mine's always skewed.
Let me guess. Chapel Roan, Sabrina Carpenter.
I now know how to say that word. What is your favorite girl? Chapel Roan. I've always seen it written out, and I'm like, I don't even know how I'm supposed to say this word.
HOTTOGO. You can have me to go. That's one of them. Pink Pony Club.
So no, stop.
What was their first big hit?
Hold on. I don't know. None of this. Stop. So I've heard that stupid tune, but I always heard it as people like there's a mimic of it or a cover, if you will, a parody where people are spelling hot dog, and that's all I heard for a long time. And so I just thought that was the thing. I'm like, HOTGOGS, hot dogs are the very best. And I'm like, oh, this is great. I'm like, I don't understand what's happening, but this is funny to me. Then I heard her version. I'm like, what is this? And then I'm like, oh, that's the actual song. I'm like, well, that's fucking stupid.
Hot dog bowl. Hot dog bowl.
Big, bunch of hot dogs smashed up in
let's see. Good Luck, Babe. That was their first one. But yeah, it was the year of girly pop. Charlie XCX, Taylor Swift, all that stuff. Wasn't in my top, but a lot of my friends, it was in their top. But it could be in some people's bottoms. You know what I'm saying? Because it's for tops and bottoms. That kind of music.
Jeez. The whole
Mine,
animation of this thing is terrible.
It's like the story is so long, and they would tell me things about all of my moods. I'd be like, well, in May you were a little emo bitch, basically. So kind of not exactly, but I forgot how they described it. And then like they were like, your August was vampire rock, whatever. It's like, oh no, don't call me vampire something. Spotify, we're friends. I pay you. Don't say that I'm into vampire shit. I'm not. Who was? Well, I guess it's weird because like there's a bunch of people that are like posting. It's like, oh my god, I can't believe that this was on my top. It's like, oh, the song you listened to 800 times, you can't believe was in your top songs for the year. I enjoy it as an exercise. I would say my year was pretty consistent in that most of the songs I listen to now. I mean, I would say this was a very active year for picking up new music and being like open to it and listening to like random playlists and adding songs to a list. It was a good year of discovery, but most of the songs I picked up throughout the year I still listen to now. They're still on my list, so I don't really go. I'm gonna go through waves of vibe and feeling, but then I always go back to other stuff. Does that make sense? You know, I'm really sophisticated and interesting.
Yes, it sounds so much like you've really analyzed your own taste, which is a weird thing to do. I sat myself down and really analyzed my music. Yeah, I mean, see, my problem with it is like I'll listen to like stand-up comedy when I go to sleep, so it fucks the algorithm. So
is that under the music algorithm?
Huh?
Is that under the music part or the podcast part?
They're not podcasts. They're comedy albums. So that's the problem. So it's like your top artist, Tom Segura. I'm like, I guess. Thanks.
I listened to 62,500 minutes of music this year.
I only had 25,000.
Which puts me in the top 3% worldwide. So I just care about music more than 97% of people. It's just a really important art form to me. That's probably my biggest takeaway. And so somehow I also listened to like something like 30,000 minutes of podcasts. Or it was combined. It was almost like 100,000 minutes of music and podcasts. And I was like, that seems like too much for me. I need to get another hobby.
I don't know where my Wrapped is on like podcasts. Mine only mentions music. Like mine doesn't say anything about podcasts.
What I do think is fun is all my top songs. None of them are like my top artists, which is weird. Like they're all like one-offs, and I don't even necessarily listen to the whole albums, which is interesting. I mean, I did. I think I have listened to some of these albums. I'm not gonna say them because I don't want to get into that per se. Like it doesn't matter. Like, I mean, because it's not like notable people. Then I would just be one of those guys. You know, one of those guys.
Totally.
But who was your number one music artist?
None.
Did you have one in your top five, or was it all comedy?
No. Well, actually, no. I should say otherwise because my Spotify is linked to our Google Home. So
it's not just
Caitlin
yours.
listens to the Google Home. When Caitlin listens to the Google Home, it's playing off of my Spotify account, not hers. So, cracking my
Taylor Swift.
top five is Taylor Swift at number 3, surrounded by 4 comedians.
That is, I mean, that defines your household, though.
Tom Segura, Nate Bargatze, Taylor Swift, Louis C.K., and Anthony Jeselnik.
Wow.
Yeah. See, she gets into everything. Taylor Swift works her way into demographics that she just like, oh, what do you got there? Some comedy albums? Be ashamed if someone were to ruin it.
I know. I was expecting to see Taylor Swift on mine just because of how much I've heard her at work and stuff like that. They know.
Shazam or like the music listening apps, those should do a recap and be like, hey, as you know, we're always running in the background. You subject yourself to environments where this is the most played music. Like, you don't play Taylor Swift.
Oh yeah,
but
yeah,
you
yeah.
sure are allowed. You don't play Taylor Swift, but you sure are around it a lot.
Yeah, you chose to hear this, but this is what you really listen to the most during the year.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
You work somewhere where there's music.
Mine was probably my favorite thing to find this year was the Amyl and the Sniffers band. So really like them. Had a new album come out this last month. The Australian punk quartet, led by Amy, the lead singer, and a bunch of guys that look like they're soccer hooligans. And one guy, actually, the guitarist looks like he's from a '70s like rock band. But very cool. I like their new album a lot. And but I really explored the entire catalog, so it was fun. I'll keep listening. Some of it's like more chuggy, punky stuff, like early '80s. Some of it's like they've been doing some like mellow stuff, but you can tell because punk is a feeling, Jeff. I don't know if you know this. Punk doesn't have to be a sound; it's just an attitude. And if you want to make a song however you want to, that's punk.
I don't know what any of this shit is, and I'm fucking scared.
Yes.
But yeah, I had that and Band of Horses, obviously, because I went to the show, was prepping for that. An oldie but a goodie, In Flames, still in there for my Swedish death metal, pop metal sound. Magic Sword for my synthwave music. And then kind of if you combine all those things together, you get my number 5, which is Ghost, which is the poppy keyboard metal with anthemic, all the, you know.
Ghost is very interesting, but I applaud what it is. I just enjoy that it exists.
Yeah.
That's the best thing I can say is like I can listen. You can casually listen to it because you're like, I just appreciate that this exists in the world.
Yeah, like some songs you listen to are like, oh, this is about Satan. I mean, I'm not like super into Satan at all, like, or any kind of like religious imagery, but these hooks are dynamic. I really enjoy them.
Right. Yeah, you're like,
but then some songs are just,
yeah, I'm not gonna
like,
dive
sound like
into
Bon
the
Jovi.
lyrics on this one. Yeah, exactly. Because then other songs you're like, oh, this ain't so bad. You're like, oh, okay, this is a little bit more
like
upbeat.
poppy.
Yeah, Ghost is a very weird dynamic, but I love that exists and that it broke through the mold.
I really wish I would have seen them with you and your brother back in the day of your
Father Emeritus, I believe the gentleman's called. And he goes through like phases. Like I like that they put lore onto it. I like a good metal band that has like a actual lore theme to it. They're like, oh well, this stage of the game. Like that's what I loved about like Glory Hammer is that they were fucking like their back stories to their albums were so absurd. I loved it though. And that the band players like dressed up as characters in the lore. Man, talking about a guy who was a dungeon master at some point in his life and just fucking went ham.
You guys, what if we LARP on stage? That's basically all it is.
Exactly.
Lightning bolt. All right. Well, maybe we should review our favorites from the year 1998. And we'll just have to take our word for it. There's no list. It won't be official.
Wow.
I wonder if actually, does Spotify keep like all of your other raps from previous years? I'd be curious. Or is it just one and done? Is it going to go the way of the Nintendo 64 and just disappear?
Interesting. I think it's a one and done.
So, very interesting year, 1998.
Yeah.
It's like there's some highlights, but I feel like there's not a lot of super highlights. It's a lot of like stuff, a lot of 5s and 6s. I feel like in terms of content that
Quality.
a lot I enjoyed.
Yeah.
But no like super. There's a couple all-stars, a couple big ones, but not as like. I struggle making a Mount Rushmore of different categories here. And so that led me to think that, hey, we are beginning to approach the era of the 2000s where pop culture, to me, again, is at an all-time low. And I don't know why. It feels that way. And if it feels that way, you can't change my mind because that's the way I feel.
Right, because that's how feelings work. I've had them since I was born.
Yeah. And I sort of remember almost vibes. So 15 years old in 1998, just sort of having some agency, going to whatever, someone's house. Definitely have access to rated R movies because nobody cares anymore at this point.
Yep.
Like, maybe have friends who can drive now. I do remember it was a big year for my neighborhood in the Westwood area with Adam Sumislowski, who lived near me. And then Steve Samasuk was his name. He's a really weird dude. And the reason we hung out with him, it was fun. I don't mean it as a bad way. It was just he lived near us and he had a car. And he also he had the illegal cable box, which was a thing. He got hooked up, with the cable box. So we would go over there and watch like the Tyson fight or something like that, Or he would record all the pay-per-view movies. So that's how, you get to see movies like Basketball or whatever, like that kind of shit. Snake Eyes, I distinctly remember watching over at his place.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Nicolas Cage flick?
Yep. There's like a couple well, we've already talked about Rounders on this podcast, so we won't go too into it, but pretty sure it came out this year. And that was changed everything about the culture of television broadcast and poker broadcast because it became so popular and ubiquitous that everybody wanted to keep watching it and playing it. And it kind of made, I think Hold'em kind of made gambling the norm instead of like a degen activity. I mean, we were doing it in high school, playing for just, small amounts of change and money. But then, it evolved into like tournaments for $10, stuff like that. And then the poker boom happened years later with Chris Moneymaker, but all because of this movie. Unfortunately, the movie is good and it holds up. It would suck if you look back on it.
Yeah, it's still an absolutely watchable movie. There's no time element to it that makes you go like, oh, that really wouldn't work today. Like, it's actually still all pretty legit. It's kind of timeless, which is good. Yeah, it definitely was a good movie. So, right, like you say, like that's a benefit. That's not just something I enjoyed because of at the time it was an option. It's still an excellent movie for anyone to watch for the first time. It's funny, like you said about watchability and stuff, is right. It's like poker became. You literally could throw on poker and watch people play poker on ESPN for hours. I could sit and watch it on like ESPN Classic. I'm like, okay, I'll just sit here and literally watch poker players play poker for hours. And that's incredible. Like reality TV that I don't think gets enough credit. That they would jump around to tables. They'd of course go to tables where there's like actors or actresses playing. So you're like, oh wow, this person, Jennifer Tilly is a poker player. Like, wow, that's really cool. Ed Norton and Matt Damon played in the '98 World Series of Poker, I believe.
That's right.
Main event.
I think to learn, character development,
Yeah. So, yeah, it was just that's when poker players became, really like could build their own personas. To the general public, which is wild. Now, obviously, it's not massively embraced by the general public, but you weren't surprised to like meet other kids in high school that liked watching poker or wanted to play poker. And then, like you say, like once we got into college and it really had a chance to marinate, it was all over TV, and you could easily just find groups of people to play poker games when we would come home during college and work at McQuay. We had that one summer where Vince Bachman kept bringing us to like poker events and stuff, like in his
nightly tournaments,
in backyards and stuff. And we're like, all right, yeah, sure, why not? Him, Eddie Lockern. I'd play at his house because Vince, I think, introduced me to Eddie. I really didn't know Eddie in high school, but yeah, Adam Sumi was there for a couple of them. So yeah, just going to random people's houses. People would call you and be like, "Hey, do you want to play cards tonight?" I'm like, "Yeah, I do." So very cool. I love that. I love that that time in my life, just going to play cards everywhere because everyone was playing cards.
And it was literally because of this movie. Like it was. Like I know.
Yeah.
Obviously, like ESPN changed their model. Like once they started having the card cams, like could you imagine what kind of degen did you have to be to watch poker before you could see the cards? Who was
Right.
watching those broadcasts? Like just trying to
Why
guess,
do I
or just,
care?
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I dipped back in this summer to like watching some again online, but it's so regular. You know, obviously it's so regular. Well, not where you are. That was a fun weekend at your place. You could just play some blackjack in New
Yeah.
Jersey online. That's terrible. I'm glad I can't do that here actually, but it, you know, I like just watching these videos, like because I think they do. I don't know who like poker. I don't remember the name of it, but there's a new brand. Like one brand has like the rights to all the poker now, so they show all the words. But you just got to watch it online. But I'll watch highlights and stuff like that. And it's still enjoyable. It's so sophisticated now, though. I don't dabble as much, so now it's like just all the verbiage they use now, like how like how many nerds are in this and have like grown up with it. Like you almost have to like learn when you're like 10 years old and learn the strategies in the game and the odds and like just whether I remember when like implied odds used to be a big thing and now it's just like a given, everybody knows it, so you gotta like it's like literal math, like it's more like calculus now than it is like even gaming.
It's
Which is kind of
gone the way of baseball. You know,
Yeah.
where it's like you don't pull a pitcher when you think he doesn't have it anymore, or anything like that, or you don't leave him in because he wants the next guy. Is you just go, nope, the numbers say I do this now, and so like you just, yeah, these people are just sitting as computers, and not really making independent decisions.
Yeah. It is
Which is-
nice though when you
it
still
takes-
have those old school dudes like Negranas or whatever making a read on somebody. You know, it's like whatever the math is supposed to be. So like, no, I'm gonna fold this. I got 3 aces, but I think you've got the boat or something like that. And they're like, how
Yeah.
do you fucking know that?
Come on, that makes no sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, personalities were. That's what it was cool because you could literally watch the World Series of Poker and be like, oh, good, this is a Helmuth table, or this is a Ingranu table, or this is Ivy table. Because you knew, as a fan, you knew how that guy liked to play, and that kind of added the flavor to the reality TV aspect, is that certain players played certain ways. So you're like, oh, these personalities going against each other. Okay, Mike Matusow and all this. Like,
Yeah.
you knew how people played. So that was always cool. And like Doyle Brunson and TJ Cloutier and all these names, like
God.
you even had your own perspective of like, or like Scotty Wen drinking his beer, and
Yeah. Scotty
there
Bibby.
was always just like there was just you were excited to watch these guys play. You actually rooted for certain guys, and you were happy when other guys played poorly. Like it was just a fan, like any other. It was like being a fan of any other sport for that late '90s, early 2000s. Loved it.
God, I was more of a Dan Harrington man. Just really the
No one is a Dan Harrington
enthus-
man. He just sat there. He was the most bland.
I know he
person in
did
the
like a
world.
potato. He just won
Oh.
tournament somehow, but I don't, I
Right.
don't know how. Just, he wore a green Red Sox hat or something like that. Was his personality. That was basically it. God, I love that our brains are filled with this. This is useful stuff that we're gonna
Absolutely.
take to the sun with us. Probably the movie I've watched the most, or I would say probably the best movie. I still think it's great. I mean, it's nobody ever says it isn't, but I can still watch it. Is Saving Private Ryan? It still gets me
100%. That's
when
on
I
my
watch
list.
it. Yeah, like I still for some reason I still haven't lost any like I'm not desensitized to it. Whenever I see it, it still like hits all the beats. Whether it's like the violence or the beginning and the scene, just how graphic it was, but how terrifying it is. Like just the moments. Anytime somebody dies or something, or on Giovanni Ribisi's death, like all
I was
that.
just gonna say
mom.
Giovanni Ribisi's death is the worst.
Yeah, he's got the holes in him and just like
Yeah.
wants his mom. But then after he told the story about how he pretended to be asleep when his mom came home and he didn't know why he did it, I was like, damn, it's a hell of a picture.
Yeah.
And it did not win movie of the year because I think Shakespeare in Love did, which we all still watch to this day.
Right.
We all still
which holds true.
love it's probably a great movie.
Starring that person or someone, I'm guessing.
I think it was Ray
Saving Private
Fiennes
Ryan,
or something like that. But
I think what it did is like it I felt like mature watching it too. Like I felt like an adult watching that movie of like appreciating, because like we're 14 or 15, and so like I'm watching a movie that's not a comedy, but it's not like a lovey-dovey drama. It's like this stuff really happened. It's a accurate depiction by all accords of how people received it, because of course 1998 World War II vets are seeing this movie and being able to go, like people on Normandy are being able to say like, yeah, this was depicted very accurately. So like it felt like I was making like an adult decision to watch this movie, and I'm like, at first I'm like, wow, is it okay for me to really, really enjoy this movie? Because again, it's like, it's not needless action violence. It's realistically depicted death and violence. So it was like, I remember going through like an emotional concept of being like, is it okay to like really, really enjoy this movie for what it is? Because I like what it's telling me. I like how it makes me like, ooh, kind of like appreciate that generation. My own grandfather fighting in the war, not on Normandy, but fighting in World War II. And like, it was just a very eye-opening concept. And then, like you say, it's got great rewatchability. And anything that's like not shock gore, comedy, stuff like when you have dramas that are good rewatch capability, you know you have a phenomenal movie on your hands, because it's just like, I don't know why I want to watch this again, but I have a 4K TV, and like my PS5 plays like Ultra HD stuff. And one of like the 5 movies I owned, I went out and bought in Ultra HD, is Saving Private Ryan, and they remastered it so that it's almost like slightly like grainy.
yeah,
and
no,
it almost feels more like a World War II era movie. It's fucking wild to explain, but it's creepy how good it looks. They almost made it look shittier with the capability of Ultra HD. It's amazing to watch, though.
I had that exact thought when I watched it last. Because, yeah, you're right. It wasn't like super cleaned up or crystallized or whatever. Like, it still looked like film, like real film that it was on, and like, so it does keep that vintage feel.
Yeah,
but it's good. I mean, there was like, remember that, like, it was such a big deal in the late 90s. Like World War II had like a renaissance, or the idea of it, because probably a lot of the people that were involved in it were coming of age, a certain age, and like it was that Band of Brothers. Like I think it was like, cause yeah, it was like 50 years later, so probably a lot of like 50-year anniversary stuff was happening with it, and it like led to a new generation of appreciation for it. Pretty terrible thing. Like I'm glad we didn't have to do that or be a part of that. That'd be terrible. I would hate that.
Yep.
Like just being 18, 19 years old, being sent over to fight. I mean, but you would have wanted to. You would have wanted to, because you would have been like, fuck Hitler. Fuck Hitler.
Well,
fuck Hitler.
Right. And I think, like, listen, right, a draft's a draft and all that. I think the scarier draft was the concept of, like, Vietnam. I think Vietnam battle was way creepier than World War II. Not to fucking try to put a hierarchy on it. But, yeah, I think it's wild, because in that mindset, they were a generation of kids were literally, like, forging documents to get to enlist to go over. Like, people were cheating to go to war. That's what that's how our mindsets were in America in the 40s, where, like, kids are literally, like, begging to go to war. No one's avoiding going to war. They're begging to go to war. So, it's scary just because There are thousands upon thousands that's just like, all right, here it is, game day. Boom. Like, didn't even make it to the shore of Normandy, as we saw how, like, the movie opened up.
God,
And it's
yeah.
like, and that's
It
and
is.
that's it. And that's your story.
I know. Revisiting it as an adult is definitely different. I think when I watched it back then, I was probably way more into like the violence of it for some reason, or just the, in a way, like that's what I could relate. It's like cool to see that, even though it wasn't cool, but it was like just wild.
I get what you mean.
And now I'm like
Yeah.
very much more into the human elements of it, or like the stories, the relationships, and all of that. So it's fun to have a movie that you can watch in different eras and see how you change yourself.
Yeah. Speaking of which, Dirty Work is on my list. Oh, is that a
Is
good
it?
transition?
Was
Is that a good
that
segue?
year?
Yeah.
Nice.
Dirty Work. I remember I had it on VHS. Norm Macdonald movie. A lot of people don't know it, but the people that do know it, no one's ever said, I saw Dirty Work. It's all right. No. If you've seen Dirty Work, you love Dirty Work.
Yeah.
Amazing
Yeah,
that you can put
I mean,
Norm Macdonald's
or
style
you didn't
of
finish
comedy into a movie. Yeah, or you didn't finish it. Right. Or you
Yeah,
hate
if you weren't,
because
you
you're
didn't
like, I don't
watch the whole
understand
thing, so nobody watched the whole thing. It's like, yeah,
No.
because it was right away. You know what you're getting into.
Yep. But Artie Lang, when he was still a human. Chris
Yeah,
Farley's
had a
in that
nose.
movie. Chris Farley, one of his last movies. Who else is in there? What's his face? Shooter McGavin. Why can't I think of it? Christopher McDonald. He's in there.
Yep.
And then a lot of other guys from like
Yeah,
SNL that were
Basketball.
like behind the scenes guys. Oh, Basketball, of course.
Another comedy. There's something about
Big
Mary.
push for real
It's
big
the-
fish.
Yeah, the rated R comedies. This was like an era. Like it became known. That was a thing. Like all of a sudden you could have rated R comedies, and people would pay to see them, or at least like rent them. This is when DVDs are starting to emerge as well. I mean, I know videos were already a video rentals, but DVDs are starting to emerge, and a lot of these movies became a lot of people's first in their DVD collections when you had to have them.
Yeah.
Can't Hardly Wait, right?
Yep.
Isn't that this year?
Mhm. Yes, it is. Huge gateway.
Truman
for
Show,
a
notable.
lot of people. Yeah. So I remember watching Truman Show when it came out. I definitely saw it in the theater, and I remember liking parts of it, but really wasn't into it for the whole feel because of like the type of like dramedy it was. But one that as I got older, I appreciate more. I think it is, and it's because of that. Like you'd said with your take on Saving Private Ryan, is the reality is at 15, I don't like the drama. I didn't really appreciate the drama
Just wanted
aspects of
the
a Jim Carrey.
Jim
movie.
Carrey laughs.
Yeah, I'm like, give me 110% Jim Carrey. I want Jim Carrey, and it's not, and it's something different. There's comedic writing and his flavor on a drama, but I appreciate that depth and that range that he has later on because I think that actually is a very good movie. The only thing that's not great about that movie is that like the Kristoff character is so stupid. It's so cheesy. Played by Ed Harris. It's so lame. It's kind of hack. I'm like they should have gone a different route with
It
him.
is like it's like a 1930s director or something. 40s. director.
Yeah, like he's like over artsy, and I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
that really wouldn't happen like that. So that's the one qualm I have with it. But overall, it's a good movie.
It wasn't. It was very timely though because this is before the era of reality TV. And not really because Real World's out. Actually, Real World right now is probably at an all-time high. We're probably
True.
Real
Yeah.
World bangers. I don't know if this is the year of the slap on Irene, but we're in that wheelhouse of like that kind of reality. Survivor's probably just about to come out, but it is like it's not unthinkable the concept of this, like being trapped in a reality show. And I like the quote from that movie that still sticks with me. And there's versions of it in my head whenever I listen to people say stupid shit. But it's whenever she does the Mortimer? How do you? No, it's not Mortimer. What's her name?
Tinny.
I forgot.
Laura Tinney.
Tinny.
Laura
Laura Linney.
Laura Linney. That's what it is.
Um,
Laura Linney.
Yeah. She's doing the Ovaltine or whatever it is. Is that what it was? Ovaltine
in the kitchen.
Doing that. She's and he's like, what?
I think like the product placement
Something
in the
like
kitchen.
It.
Yeah. He's like, what are you talking to?
What are you doing? Who are you talking to? What are you doing? It's just like, I love that. Just like, because it's so, he's really like, what the fuck are you doing? Am I crazy? And I just like, that's echoes in my mind sometimes when I'm just hearing somebody say, I'm just like, who are you talking to?
You know what's hard though? So after that part when he leaves and he's trying one of his first escapes, and his best friend goes and talks to him, and they're like feeding him the lines while they're sitting on the dock. It like bothers me so much because I'm like, Jim Carrey thinks he's talking to his friend and someone's feeding his friend lines. I'm like, this is so frustrating. I'm like,
manipulating him completely.
You feel for Truman because you're like, oh my God, nothing around him is genuine. And it's like, to be honest with you, there's a little bit of anxiety behind that where you're like, oh my God, even the most intense moments of his life is someone is feeding lines to people. And it is weird because they're like, yeah, but we're actually friends, Truman. And like, he's just like, no, none of this is real. None of you are real. Like, everything is fucking chaos. So like, it kind of is interesting that he breaks the way he does. And like, for those of you who've never seen it, there's water around the edges, but they had his father drown. They had him watch his father drown when he was a child so that he would be afraid of water so that he would never want to leave the island that they're on. Like, just fucking with that concept to be ensure that a show can keep going. Like, so like the premise of it is a lot of things are really well done, but yeah, it's an emotional ride if you watch it and really focus on everything that's happening. I had one more down that you haven't mentioned. And that's American History X.
I have it written down, yeah.
Year.
Ed Norton, yeah.
So yeah, Ed Norton and another one. That's intense. But I've had mixed feelings for my whole adult life of like, what is that movie's actual vibe and MO? And I've gone back and forth. I'm like, I don't know that it gets the message across that it says it's getting across. And then other times I'm like, it is. I think you have to make sure the person watching it is in a right spot of mind and like going in with the proper intentions, because I think it can be misinterpreted. Certainly if you stop at 3/4 of the way through, then you have seen a very different movie than if you don't finish it out.
Yeah. You're just there for the racist shit.
Right. Like, I think Edward Norton's development of the character and execution of, is it Daniel?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. Yeah. So
his brother.
I think Derek. Derek. He's Derek. So his portrayal of Derek is so good, and I think the changes do make sense, and I think the intensity is there. I think everything's right. I just don't know if the film's put together in a way that a person who's not understanding what they're seeing and when they're seeing it is going to interpret it correctly. Like, because there's a lot of shot forward, shot back, like it's jumping around the timeline. And if you see it once, you might get a little confused and be like, okay, I think I get what happens. But like, it's wild because they do not pull back on
brutal
on how you feel while you're watching it. It is uncomfortable to watch some scenes because of how aggressive it is, and not even by violence or nature. It's just using words, but man, does it make you feel fucking uncomfortable at some parts, which in my opinion makes it a valid movie. If it's making you uncomfortable watching it, then in reality, in the concept of art, it's doing its job.
Yeah, again, it was like, I sort of remember it coming out and being like, seeing all the scenes and not really, I wouldn't say I had a firm grasp on racism or my feelings on it or what it meant. I wouldn't say I grew up with a lot of like diverse backgrounds or a knowledge base. And so, you know, the more you watch it later on, again, it's like, as a person who's somewhat developed, trying to be like a person of the world, it's like, it's really like it's really tragic. Like because it, in the end, it costs him everything, but not his own death. It's like the person he loves the most. It costs him. So it's like, and that's after he changed. So it's like even though he's changed, it's like still the scars of who you are and what you were just exist with you in perpetuity. But nothing like good man on man dropping the soap scene in the prison. That's real. That's real nice
needed.
to see.
Yep. Needed that.
That's real pleasant.
Yeah, needed that. Yeah. Turns out you don't need to see.
I think
all of
music
it to be
is
put-
summed up. What's that?
I was gonna say. It turns out you don't need to see all of it to be made feel really, 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 really awkward with that. But anyway.
Yeah, it looked like a rough scene in the infirmary. This is lying on your tummy, and just getting the old Uranus stitched up.
Hot dog bowl.
Music, I would say no huge bangers for me outside of like this is TRL is at an all-time high right now. All-time high.
Okay.
We've got the boy bands. We've got Britney Spears dropping albums. We've got Korn, Follow the Leader. This is like TRL. You never knew. It was a fight for number one every day. Would it be Backstreet Boys or would it be Korn? It's like, what?
Right.
What's the difference?
Right. You really
Or
don't.
would it be
know.
Lauryn Hill or Goo Goo Dolls? It was like, it was for pop music. It was pretty diverse in terms of like what the kids were listening to. I'll say that. But most people kind of like spanned the vibe of all of this stuff. Like, huge year for the Goo Goo Dolls. Was it Dizzy Up the Girl? And then Iris
man.
comes out later in the year. Johnny Resnick and his hair are ruling the world.
Oh, boy.
Look out, Buffalo. Look out,
Wow.
world.
Yep.
But,
That hair. He kind of had like the starting of emo hair before emo hair was ever being thought of. Very
yeah, it was
productive.
sort of like the swoopy bang.
Yeah.
Almost a Karen haircut. But
Yeah, kind of like the chick from John and Kate plus 8. Kate. He
Mm-hmm.
kind of had Kate's haircut before Kate was around. I had a couple albums that I wanted to share. So we'll go with the metal ones that were big for me. System of a Down debuted with their self-titled. That obviously was very interesting. Even the songs that they had on the radio were pretty different. So I knew like, okay, I'm wondering where this band's gonna go.
Sugar.
Because it was Sugar and then Spiders. And I'm like, ooh, these are very different songs. I'm like, I wonder
they
what
were,
else.
dude.
Yeah, like when Spiders came out,
wild.
I'm like, I don't understand what I'm listening to now. So I remember getting the album and being like, all right, this is pretty all over the place. But it was, oh boy, was it heavy in some parts, and I'm like, this is great. Rob Zombie, Hellbilly Deluxe, so Dragula, Living Dead Girl, those were massive hits on the radio.
They were.
Rob Zombie had officially broken off from White Zombie and came out guns a-blazing. I did have Korn on there, of course, Follow the Leader. I had Metallica Garage Inc. came out that year. And I remember being like,
yeah.
I was like, okay. I'm like, these are covers. Interesting. Because Whiskey in the Jar was on the radio and was massive. Their cover of Whiskey in the Jar was everywhere. Was there something else on that album that was on the radio?
Oh, Turn the Page.
Oh yeah, Turn the Page. Duh. Bob Seger. So
Huge.
I'd never heard Turn the Page. I heard the Bob Seger version after the Metallica version. So to me, it's always felt like a Metallica song. Same with Whiskey in the Jar, of course. But
Die, My Darling.
Oh yeah, some Misfits. So it was a double album. I remember not being into a lot of the covers. It just is what it is at that age. Some of them I'm like, this doesn't do anything for me. But I think over time, your taste develops, so you go back and you listen to it. And I've told you before, like the Merciful Fate medley is like one of my favorite songs that Metallica does all time. I love that medley. So one
especially
story
that second
I have.
CD. Well,
Yeah.
I guess just echo that as like I didn't appreciate all those songs. It's probably one of the ones that's aged the best for me because I think that Metallica does a great cover as well. I think they're one of the best at like honoring, I think, the original sound, but they don't morph it too much. not saying that it's good or bad. I just like the way that they do it because they definitely bring it into their sound. Like they do one of the best jobs of I think blending who they are with what the original song is. And I, over time, because that second CD or second cassette, whatever, was like some of their older stuff, which I hadn't even really heard before at that time, so I didn't even really get it. Right. But now, a lot of like Blitzkrieg, Bread Fan, The Prince, like all those songs that were on the second half of it were bangers.
Yeah, I agree. One weird story I have about Garage Inc. is I remember one time we were in 10th grade math, but it wasn't pre-calc. It was whatever 10th grade, whatever we were in 10th grade. We had Ms. Carnicelli, and I'm pretty sure you were in my math class with me that year.
I think so. Carnicelli, I think I remember her, yeah.
And so Rick Sir came in one day, and he was absent the day before, and we were talking about like where he was, and he goes, "Oh, I skipped second half of school and told my grandma she had to take me to Record Town and get the new Metallica CD." So Rick Sir left school early and had his grandma drive him to the Finger Lakes Mall to pick up Garage Inc. And for some reason, that's this weird little story that I remember hearing in the back of my head. Like, that's something I assimilate with
I forgot about Rick Sir.
Makes no sense why I remember that, but yeah, he was so pumped. He was like, yeah. He's like, Rick Sir was a classic of T-shirt with a flannel over it. That was a Rick Sir look with big chops, big old sideburns, and in high school, that established dominance. Big old sideburns in high school.
I'm pretty sure I had the Garage Inc. poster too in my room.
Did you?
I had that as
I either had it as a poster or I might have had it as a
just the grease monkey looks.
Right. I can't remember if I had a poster or a tapestry at all. But I may be very well remembering it that you had it in your room, and so my brain's like, yeah, it was you had it. Two non-metal albums that are nothing like each other. One, Beastie Boys, Hello Nasty, Intergalactic was massive.
Yeah, I have that on my list.
Really brought Beastie Boys back into the limelight. That was a fun,
very
fun
different
freaking
sound.
Song. Yeah. Yep.
I sort of remember because like
huge.
It was always Fight for Your Right, or Brooklyn, or No Sleep Till Brooklyn, whatever. Girl, like that sound. And then, Intergalactic when that came out. Because I remember it being on the radio. It's like, we got a new Beastie Boys, and you're like, what the fuck? And I would say I did not like it at first. I was like, what the fuck is this? And
I liked it from the go.
Well, now, and I was like, and then it grew on me. It just like over that summer or whatever, and it was like, I don't know, it was cool if they kind of like mixed up the beats and the sound and did something different. Yeah. Of course, when I'm young, I don't want different. I want the same everything all the time.
Right.
I don't appreciate it then.
This band has a sound, and I want that sound right now.
Be the same thing all the time.
The last one I have is definitely probably not one that you have down. Is Fastball, All the Pain Money Can Buy. I bought the album.
I forgot about it, but Fastball is awesome.
Solely based on the song The Way. Anyone can see the road that they're walking. That song was on the radio. I loved it. I thought it was a very interesting alt-rock song, and I bought the album, and the album is fantastic. They actually have two vocalists. They have a lot of great songs. So if anyone's looking for a very random, easy rock listen, this is not heavy rock or anything like that. If you remember the song The Way, it's all in that idea. Fastball, All the Pain Money Can Buy would be a great album to jump into if you're just looking for like an easy old rock album to listen to.
So they still
that's high on the list.
They're still together, and I know that because they used to play like small shows in Austin all the time.
Oh,
like,
really?
That's where they're from. So they used to do like random gigs. There's like, and they don't pretend they're anything big. Like everybody kind of knows that they had the hit, but they would just be around town. I mean, they still tour here and there, but they still would just do like shows around like Red River area and stuff like that. I always thought it was kind of cool they were still together and still doing it, just playing because they love it.
Big fan. That's all I got on music.
Games, Ocarina of Time, the greatest. Sit on your butt. in front of the TV game of all time for me, or lay on, be on the ground, laying on a pillow, just trying to figure it out, not knowing what I'm doing. But the 3D of it, the Skulltulas, the water dungeon, all this shit. Then getting the Brady game guide to finally help me out with this. Or it was early internet too, so it'd be like go to look it up online and try to get
Like
a little
IGN?
walkthrough.
Yeah.
Yeah. Game facts
Oh man,
StarCraft.
Game Facts. Okay.
and NFL Blitz kind of changed the game that year. Loved me some because that spawned NHL Hits, which was one of my favorite games of all time in '02 or whatever. Like just the
Arcade
bombastic, like big hits of like just totally unrealistic arcade football and then hockey is like great. Loved
taking
it.
the principle of NBA Jam and finally putting it onto other sports, because they've always had like dumb cyber football and shit
Right.
that was weird, but it was never just
Yeah.
like, no, just make NBA Jam as a football game, as a hockey game. I forgot about NHL Hits though. That was a very, very good game.
I think they only did it 2 years, like '02 and '03, and a lot of people played it. I remember because it was like the perfect. It was obviously perfect to have it in a hockey setting. Just rocking people 3-on-3 too. That was kind of fun. And now like all the new NHL games do have like 3-on-3 mode on them.
Oh, nice.
So it's pretty fun. But yeah, I don't have to get into Ocarina of Time. Everybody knows about it. But if you haven't tried it, dabble. Do a little dabbling.
I was also mentioned in the world of toys. That was also the year of Furbies and Tamagotchis.
Was it? They ruled the
Yeah.
world.
We did not have Furby. I did not have a Furby. I don't think I was at that age where a Furby would entertain me. But I feel like I had a Tamagotchi. But I feel like 14 would have been old to have one. But the good news is I remember having one, doing it for like a day and being like, I am so not into this. I'm like, this is mind-blowingly not up my alley. Like, my thing kept dying. I'm like, so I have to just remember to push a button to feed it. I'm like, what is the point of all this? So it was literally within like 48 hours. I'm like, I have no desire to do this ever again. I don't even know if I had a Tamagotchi or a Gigapet. But I had one of those at one point, and it did not hit.
It's like we didn't have cell phones, What else were we going to keep ourselves busy with at the desk? Right. I didn't have one either, but I don't know what I did, honestly. I just stared out the window.
Right.
Just looked at tree branches out there blowing in the wind.
I was better off with it. Yeah, I was more of a man that looked for a longing gaze, as opposed to anything else. Just a stare into nothing. Okay. All right.
Speaking of longing gaze, I think this show has gone on long enough. All right.